So hello, I'm David Strafford. I'm a lecturer in the events management team at the in the business school. And it does follow on quite nicely from that, actually. So what I'm going to do is basically share an experience, tell you a story of how I've used Twitter in the teaching of the events management course, and kind of just give you the kind of warts and all, kind of pros and cons, mixed results that occurred. So, some people really, I've been to quite a lot of these sessions about owning the use of Twitter, and some people are really kind of evangelical about it, we should use Twitter. Other people kind of warn against it. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to share my experience of using Twitter and kind of let you make up your own minds, I guess. So, there we go. So it's Shoe Events Chat. This is the story of what we did essentially in the events management course. So I thought to start with why I started. And I've only been teaching full time for a couple of years. I've come from industry, got about 15 years in events management industry. I use Twitter professionally. I use Twitter all the time, check it a few times a day. I've got lots of professional contacts on Twitter, so for me it's quite an important tool. And I was coming to work one morning and I saw these two tweets from one of the students that I followed. I don't know who the lecturer was. It wasn't me, I'm pleased to say. But something didn't quite sit right with me. When I saw those tweets, I was thinking, well, this is your kind of professional, at the moment, it's your professional environment. Your peers will see this, future employers might see this, your lecturers will see this. It doesn't quite, something just wasn't quite right with it. So I thought, well, rightly or wrongly, I thought I'll try and do something about it. And I've been to a few of these sessions where they sort of encouraged you to use Twitter. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to roll up the sleeves, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give Twitter a go, try and use it in the teaching somehow. So as I say, I've come from industry, so I still do events. This is me with Plaster Mouse, events. I do events professionally, as I say, and have done for quite a long time. So I've got quite a lot of, sort of contacts with Twitter. And just as an example, Eventbrite, which is quite a big ticketing network, events site, ticketing selling site, they contacted me through Twitter to write a blog for them. So that's just kind of one example of how Twitter can be used professionally in the events world. So for me, it was quite important for my students when they leave to be sort of proficient and professional on Twitter. So it really came from the drive of increasing employability and professionalism. But then obviously, there's a bit of kind of learning and teaching context as well, which I'll come on to in a second. But why Twitter? Why not say Facebook or LinkedIn? Well, Facebook for me, this silly photo I've just included, just to show that it's quite personal to me. Facebook, it's like family photos, holiday photos. I don't really want to engage with students on Facebook particularly. LinkedIn's great for lots of reasons, but it wasn't quite what I was after. I wanted to kind of generate discussion, and LinkedIn's not great for generating discussion. And Blackboard is quite clunky, isn't it? I think a lot of people think it's almost like a website. You upload stuff to Blackboard. It's not really a kind of communication tool. So, in all honesty, it was always Twitter. I didn't really think about using any of the other social media platforms. So, lots of benefits of using Twitter. This kind of active participatory learning. So, I kind of did some research, looked at some journals, looked at some other kind of conference papers and things like that, and came up with this kind of list of benefits of using Twitter. And I think that's kind of encouraging the active participatory learning in class. Certainly, if you're tweeting along with the lecturer, summing up what the lecturer is saying, then you're kind of actively engaged, as we saw in the keynote. Another one for me, which is really important, was this kind of idea of increasing professionalism, employability, people leaving with good skills and professional skills on Twitter is really important, as I've tried to demonstrate. And another kind of good one for me is summing up kind of what you're learning in this kind of 140 characters is quite a nice way of kind of condensing what you're trying to understand. So there are definite benefits, and as I say, of kind of here's just a range of papers that I read in order to kind of come to those conclusions. There's hundreds more articles out there. This is my Pinterest. I've got a Pinterest page which is just social media and teaching. That that goes on for hundreds. If you Google top 10 tips of using social media and teaching, you get thousands of results. So it's definitely there's definitely lots of ways, lots of articles out there. But as I say, I'm not really here to preach. I'm here to kind of share my experience. So what did I do? Well, I set up the account handle at Shoe Events Chat, which is a kind of separate. It's not my own personal one. It's a separate Twitter account, and I basically followed as many students as I could. they followed me back, and I would sort of tweet and retweet interesting articles, interesting news articles, blogs. I would post links to different YouTube videos and things like that, just on a general basis. So we'd have a kind of like a hub account for interesting event management related kind of stories and news articles. And then once a week, so I would do a lecture on a Tuesday morning. This is semester 1 last year. Do a lecture on a Tuesday morning, the Events Foundation, all 150 students. Do a lecture at 9 AM to 10 AM, and then at 6 till 7 that evening, I'd host a Twitter hour, like a tweet chat Twitter hour, where I would basically recap the lecture. So I'd ask questions from the lecture. I would post out all the kind of interesting links. And I use quite a lot of links to videos and maybe like TED Talks, things like that. I don't know if you do that with your teaching, but when you've got them in the presentation, it's it's going to click on this later, and you don't really expect students to actually go on, download the lecture, watch the videos. Whereas you could post them out through Twitter. You could, so here's that video I was talking about earlier. Give it a watch, and it's quite easy to watch videos and look at photos now in Twitter. You can kind of scroll through. But crucially, I asked questions. So I asked questions of, surrounding the topic that I was trying to teach earlier in the day, seeing if they'd remember, trying to generate discussion. So trying to generate peer-to-peer kind of discussion. So I did that with the level 4 students in semester 1. It was a short fact module, and then semester 2 I did it with level 5 students. Again, another short fact module about charity events and fundraising. And each time it was a few hours after the lecture, kind of recapping the lecture, essentially. Okay. So here's an example of a few tweets. So for instance, so this is the start. Question 1, so why do people volunteer? Have you got any good reasons why you volunteered? So generating this discussion between students, well, this is why I volunteered. It's understanding motivations for volunteering through learning about each other's kind of experiences. Does that make sense? Another few examples here. So this we're talking about Sheffield spent nearly £1 million on bringing the Tour de France to Sheffield. Was it worth it? Here's a good article that discusses it, posted articles. And this is something that people can do on their phones. It's not something it's not particularly formal. You can do it while they're watching TV. Just here's a click to an article, read through the article. Kind of informal, generating discussion outside of the class. Okay? And then a useful thing you can do at the end is after you get all the tweets together. This is called Storify, which is really good. You can pull together all the tweets that have happened in that hour, create a link, create a PDF, and email it to all the students. So say, if you missed the Twitter hour last night, here's the link, read all the tweets, scroll through and read all the tweets. So it's quite a nice feature. You can pull all the tweets together for that hour, and then generate these kind of links that are published on the website, or as I say, save it as a PDF and send it out to all the students. So that's kind of what I did. So was it successful? Well, at times it kind of felt a bit like this. It wasn't always like this, but it definitely felt. I mean, a good week, maybe 5 students would get involved. Some weeks it struggled to get 1 or 2. So it was quite hard work, and it definitely felt like I was kind of flogging a dead horse in some ways. And very much that's why I'm stood here today, really, because I thought halfway through the term, I thought, well, I need to understand this a bit better. I can see the students are on Twitter, I can literally see them tweeting, but why aren't they engaging with the kind of the learning activity that I'm trying to propose? So I thought, well, I need to do some research. So I need to look into this a bit more. So I did a good form, I sent it out to, what did we have? We had 77 level 4 semester, at the end of semester 1, and then 39, just shortly it wasn't a compulsory module, so it's 39 level 5 students at the end of semester 2, so a total of 116, so not quite as many, but quite a small case study, if you like, 116 respondents, about 40% of the total students that we teach. And then I took that and I then interviewed 4 students, some on a qualitative basis, 2 from each year, 2 who I knew got involved with the tweet chat, and 2 who I knew used Twitter but didn't get involved, so I kind of wanted a bit of a balanced view. So I started with positives, to keep positive. So how often do you use social media? How often do you use Twitter? So 76% of respondents use Twitter at least once or twice a week. That's quite high, isn't it? Three quarters? Over 3/4 of students use Twitter a lot, as we've seen with your research as well. So that's positive. I was thinking, yeah, they use Twitter. What do you use it for? Over half, so this one here, over half of the students said that they use Twitter to find volunteering and placement opportunities. So that's quite good, because that's where I was coming from. I was trying to generate this professionalism with students. So, and over a fifth, so 22%, said that they looked for event management related stories. So they are thinking about Twitter in this kind of context of, you know, learning, potentially, professionalism, looking for events, stories. I asked them the question, Twitter should be used as part of the teaching events management degree course, because it's a vital communication tool in the industry. I believe that. What do you think? Do you agree? And they agreed. Just. I mean, there's a lot of kind of meh, 3 out of 5, don't care, you know, in there, isn't there? But overall, you know, they weren't resoundingly saying no, you know, keep away from Twitter, we don't want it anywhere near our learning and teaching. And it wasn't a question of awareness. 87%, so remember, only 76% of the students actively use Twitter once or twice a week at least. But 87% of them were aware. So it wasn't a case of I hadn't told them enough about it, or they just weren't aware. You know, they were aware. They definitely knew about it. I asked this question, you know, which of the following statements best describes your involvement with the events chat? I sometimes read the posts after the tweet chats. That was quite high. So although 5%, only 5% said that they engaged properly with it, as I kind of wanted them to, which is about right, about 5% is probably about right. A further 28% said that they enjoyed reading the posts afterwards, and I did definitely get this sense of the next day people would look at the story file and they'd read the tweets and they'd favourite some tweets or they'd retweet. So the next day and the day after I was getting notifications of people retweeting, and you know, I could tell that the interaction wasn't just in that hour, it was kind of ongoing, if you like. So, you know, ultimately, trying to be positive, 33% of students had, so a third of students had a positive interaction with the tweet chat, which I think is quite, you know, that's quite a nice, that certainly gave me a bit more kind of positivity to carry on. So from the interviews, I've just pulled out a few kind of key comments really. It was good for me to get information from my portfolio, so obviously when you kind of tweet about assessment related activities, they were the more popular tweets, so that was something to take. You can look at any time of day, that was quite, you know, so again, they're going back and looking at the Storify, looking at any time of day, engaging with it when it suits you, so it wasn't a case of, you know, you have to be at a lecture, you can think, oh, I'll have a look at what the tweet chat was going on, and I've got half an hour to kill. Through questioning, I managed to see things in other ways. I thought that was a real kind of aha moment for me when the student said that. It's like, yes, you know, that kind of informal discussion between students on social media, that was a kind of real key for that. It's much more quicker. So this student was talking about, I don't want to have to go on and download the lecture slides from Blackboard. It's really clunky, I can't do it on the phone easily. So what I do is I just go through the lecture, the Twitter, tweet chat, and have a read through, and I'm reminded of the kind of topics that were discussed in the lecture from that. So it's much quicker as you can use your phone. It doesn't have to be the tutor replying, so some people would pose a question and other students would answer it. That's quite a nice feature, kind of peer-to-peer learning. And then finally, it's better than being silent. So I've included that because that's the theme of the conference. So to kind of sum up, positive feedback. The ones who engaged really engaged with it. So the sort of 5% and then the further 28% really got something from it, I thought. You know, this kind of peer-to-peer stuff, active participatory learning. They watched the videos that I set, even if they hadn't sort of downloaded the lecture slides from Blackboard. For some students, it really helped them. That informal discussion, that really helped them. Less formal learning. Accessing information through their phones was quick and easy. It was seen as fun, not really learning in the traditional sense. And obviously, as always, tweets that help with assignments were the most popular. So it was good in that sense. Okay, so but let's kind of balance it with a bit of sort of some of the negative feedback that came back, because it certainly wasn't a full-blown success. I can't claim that. So just going back to this slide then. So we said 76% of students use Twitter once or twice a week. Well, that means 24% of students don't even use Twitter once or twice a week. So for me, I've been having this kind of internal, you know, does that mean you're excluding a quarter? Does that mean a quarter of you just can't even kind of engage with this platform at all? Is it inclusive? Can it truly be inclusive if 24% people wouldn't engage with you? So I'm not too sure about that. This was quite a good slide, wasn't it? 52% people looked for job opportunities. But look really what they're using Twitter for, you know. So we've got silly videos and news articles, you know, entertainment, keeping it fun. Actually, and going back to your research, you know, they see Twitter very much as a entertainment, social thing, rather than necessarily learning and teaching tool. Again, go back to this slide. So this was the one about sort of, you know, a third of students had a positive. Well, this main one here is I'm aware of it, but don't really know what it is. So although they were aware of it, they weren't necessarily engaging with it, in, you know, the way that I really wanted them to. So some of the negative comments, their lecturers, God forbid, might start following them on Twitter. But this is the kind of mindset I was really trying to get them out of. I was trying to get them to think, you know, soon you will be followed by employers. Soon you will be followed by, you know, other colleagues. You know, stop tweeting about how hungover you are. You know, start thinking about what you're tweeting. It's a published website. You know, anyone can read what you're tweeting. Some people were scared of tweeting. This is a common reason why they didn't get involved, because they were scared of tweeting. They were just worried about tweeting and what other people would think of them. Some people put a lot more explicit things about themselves. I'm guessing that's more kind of, you know, stuff that they like, and, you know, as I say, going out and getting drunk with things. They might want the university to know about. My Twitter is sector private, so some people just went, no, you know, I've only got 40 followers. You know, sector private, I only want it to be my friends' network. I don't want to engage with employability or university at all, and that's fine. You can't really, you know, you can't really legislate it. That's their decision. But I think this is a key one, really. When I want to get away from university work, I go on Twitter. So I use Twitter as a kind of escape route to go on and, you know, look at football transfer gossip, or, you know, fashion, or, you know, celebrity kind of gossip. And then finally, a kind of practical one. If you follow a lot of people, the tweets might get lost. So actually, if you've got 1,000 people that you follow, how do you kind of, you know, the tweets might just get missed if you if there's a lot of followers. So to kind of sum up the negative side of it, really. Also, I think we put in the comments, but the time and date we were on. So I did it 6 till 7, and that was the wrong time. Effectively, people at 6 o'clock just weren't interested in carrying on with their learning and teaching. So potentially, if I'd done it at 2 or 3 o'clock, that might have been a better. Found a gap, an hour gap in their timetable. Twitter is definitely still seen by a lot of students as being a personal, not a professional. So no matter what you try and do, they'll always have this kind of wall up and say, no, this is for me and my friends. They don't want lecturers to follow them. They don't want them to know that they've been you know, out the night before or whatever. You know, they don't want university to know what they're doing. Not all students use Twitter. This is kind of the worrying thing. And they don't want to be seen to be asking stupid questions, or even, which is what Simon was talking about earlier, being the teacher's pet. They didn't want to be seen to be the teacher's pet. One girl said, oh, I tweeted last night, and the next day all my friends ripped me about it and said, oh, you're the class swat, aren't you? You're tweeting the teacher. So there's that kind of bit of a stigma still attached. And, you know, they're taught, you know, someone was saying they were taught at school to not follow the teachers and not engage with the school at all. So when they come to university, I think some level 4 students find it kind of difficult to make that transition. So if I could do it again, what would I do? Well, if more people had tweeted, more people would have tweeted. This kind of, you know, more people would have got involved if they tweeted more. So if you can find a way of getting more people to tweet, so maybe by you know, using the hashtags during the lectures, during the seminars. I really went for I didn't want them with their phones out necessarily in the lecture, but I wanted to kind of recap the lecture with this informal discussion later. But maybe if I'd done a bit more encouraging them to tweet in the lecture, they would be a bit more used to it. Maybe if I'd kept it as a general course, kind of, you know, here's an interesting news story, that might have, you know, or here's some developments in the events management field, that might have been more effective. Potentially, a lot of level 4 students asked when I said, you know, what should we do then? A lot of level 4 said, teach us about LinkedIn. We want to know about LinkedIn. We've got no idea about LinkedIn. And level 6 students, you know, I didn't try it with level 6, but a lot more level 6, they're more thinking about things like employability and professionalism. So if you're sat there thinking, well, that sounds quite good, I might give it a go, accept that you won't reach everyone. I think that's probably a given. Recruit some colleagues or some keen students beforehand and try and get them to tweet along, otherwise it is that tumbleweed. It is just you on your own talking to yourself, asking and answering your questions. If you use that tweet hour functionality, base it around assignment help. That would be that's probably what I'm going to do next year. Don't have them every week, maybe just have them twice a term and really focus on the on the assignments. Maybe start off with older, more confident. Obviously view it purely as an additional learning tool to kind of underpin learning rather than delivering actual critical course information. Most interesting, it sounds obvious, but the most popular tweets were the ones with interesting content. So here's how to volunteer at Glastonbury, that had sort of 15 retweets. You know, it's that kind of, you know, that's what we want actually. And be mindful how much time it takes. You know, I probably spent 2.5, 3 hours a week on this, you know, not work plan. So it is something I was kind of passionate about and wanted to really do and see how it sort of panned out. So yeah, just be mindful of how much time it would take. So just go, sort of summing up and going back to kind of where you were talking about before. So I had 99% of these people that asked, so only one person out of 117 said they didn't have a smartphone. So it's a case of, you know, this kind of feeds into this wider debate. And I just pulled out some of these articles recently. This one made like he jammed the signal in his classroom so they couldn't use their phones. I think he got sacked, which is quite dangerous. But there's other kind of, you know, let kids use, you know, texting and tweeting might just be good for learning. And it kind of feeds into, Twitter is one of the tools in which you can use smartphones in your teaching and learning. Not assessment, I've not really seen anything on assessment. But potentially Twitter is one of those kind of tools. So I think I'll probably adapt my SHU events chat a little bit next year and see how it goes and maybe come back next year and figure how it's gone. So that's it. That's it for me. So we should go back to the questions from earlier.
So any questions for either set of presenters or both, if you want comments from both sets? Any questions or thoughts?
I was interested in can you limit the Twitter to just your students? Did you have other people following you as well as your students?
Yes, so a lot of other kind of other events, magazines and things would follow, other people from other universities, and that's kind of one of the good things about Twitter is that it is kind of global. You know, you can bring other people into the conversation. I think there's probably a way with lists where you can have it as a private thing. I don't know enough about it to set up, but yeah, I think I was quite happy for it to be open. Actually, I think probably a private Facebook group would be the best way of doing it as a private thing. But as I said, I didn't really want to get on Facebook.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You mentioned Twitter, Facebook. How about other social network platforms like Google Plus, for example? Do you think that would it be comparable?
So I looked at when I said, you know, how often do you use Twitter? I deliberately didn't include everything. Facebook was by far and away the most popular. It was 98% use Facebook every day, something like that. Google Plus was way down, and I think if it kind of went Facebook, Twitter, then maybe Instagram, Pinterest. They were definitely 10 up. I think if I'm kind of struggling with Twitter not being all inclusive, then Google Plus and others would definitely not be. So I think that they're certainly not as popular, say, as Facebook would be the one. If you wanted to include everybody, Facebook would be the one. But for me, I don't know about you, but for me, Facebook is personal, isn't it? It's you, your friends, your family. I wouldn't necessarily want to share. Yes,
for those people that obviously had an issue with knowing about hangovers and things,
yes,
did you explore the possibility of them creating kind of a professional Twitter account as opposed to using their personal one?
Yes, I suggested that in the interview. I said, why don't you create, say, for example, Fran events, or whatever. And they said they were worried that their friends would think that they've got 2 accounts, and that actually all that would happen is their friends would follow their new SHU events account, and actually they'd just end up with 2 accounts with the same followers. So it makes real sense for you and I, but I think for the student, that was their argument. I still think that's a really good idea. From Julie, who works in your kind of learning team, he said, don't cross the streams. If you want to tweet about personal things, have that as your personal account. So I do say that to students, but so far none of them have taken it.
Can I follow that query up? Because thanks for that presentation, and it replicates some experience. Literally, I've not done anywhere near as much as you. I have Twitter chat. I've used Twitter for German, and it does replicate my experience as well. But this may show what a novice I am at Twitter. I run both my own personal, it's a professional Twitter account, and also the departmental Twitter account. And in order to do that, I had to have a special email address set up to camp onto my university email address. So I wasn't having things coming into different email accounts, because you can only apparently have one. Anyway.
Yes, you need an email
Is it
account.
possible, does the university enable students to have, or is there some way of having 2 email addresses so that they can run 2 Twitter accounts?
Yes.
Good.
Could that somehow
The
be
students
enabled?
get a Google Plus account, and their Google account, which has their student email address. I'm fairly sure they won't be using that as their email address in their normal Twitter account.
Yes.
Their external own email address. You could suggest that they use their @my.shu address.
I understand that for
Yeah.
the students who've got 2. But I mean, how do you do it, Dave? I mean, presuming you've got several Twitter accounts, because you've obviously got one for,
Yeah,
got
so-
for different modules.
my personal Twitter account is connected to my personal Gmail account, and my Shoe Events chat is connected to my East Strafford Shoe account. So they are two separate email accounts.
Yeah, it makes it, I don't want to run 2 separate emails.
It can get confusing. It can.
Yeah.
I think that would be the other thing about.
If anybody has a solution to that, they can post as a result of this.
Yeah.
I've huge interest.
I was just wondering about, did it heighten students' digital literacy skills and their awareness of actually that Twitter's a public thing?
I would say yes. Anecdotally, I would say yes, definitely. I think the fact that so going back to the original, my first slide, Becky, I think I don't know because too much away. So Becky, I've had quite a few conversations with her as we've gone on, because I made a point of saying and I favourited one of those tweets. I said, look, made a point of knowing that I'm here. I can see this. This is a public website. You're publishing this. And I think she's definitely grown over her level 4. So now I don't think she would post that now at the end of level 4, knowing that people like me follow her placements and things. Yeah.
I sort of latched on to sort of similar questions that everyone asked. I was just wondering whether you had sort of introduced it into either lectures or seminars, because you said events use Twitter quite openly anyway as connections with professional bodies, to present to level 4 students especially how to present themselves in the social media world, especially through Twitter. That's a very open plan.
I think you're right. I think that's possibly one of the mistakes I made, was that I should have probably introduced it as a kind of, like a conference like now, we've got a hashtag for the conference. And conferences and events, we teach conference management as part of it. So it's almost like that's probably what I should have done. And going into next year, I think I will definitely use it more in class to get people used to the idea of tweeting with a hashtag, so that they're aware of their kind of professionalism. So I think you're right. I think that's probably where I went wrong a little bit. And it's almost like I wanted to come today and sort of say, look, not that many people got involved with it. Here's why. So if you want to start it, this is, learn from my mistakes almost. So.
I've got a question with regards to the students, I think that's right. In our faculty we've just got to go ahead and purchase another 15 tablets for use in learning and teaching. And I'm really interested in the perception of students in terms of the value of tablets for learning. Do you think that's because academics aren't using them within learning and teaching practices, or do you think it's because, again, it's that perception of this is my social environment, this is what I use in my social environment? So do you think it's about our practice as academics, or do you think it's against students perhaps?
Possibly, because we did see that there was higher usage in some of the education areas.
Sorry, can you speak up?
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Wrong place over here. No, when we sort of disaggregated the results, we did see that in a teaching context, there seemed to be more usage of the tablets. And I think that's potentially because they're using it in their practice and they see the use of it much more. So I think that kind of answers your question, and I think if academics perhaps are using them more, they will see them as a useful tool as well. But I think some of it, in terms of the high usage of the laptops, comes down to that creation, in that a tablet isn't quite the same thing for creating documents, creating work that they're doing. So it depends how they're using it, isn't it? And you can lead that, can't you, as academics, showing them how they can create.
But I think that's the discussion we make, isn't it, going back to kind of digital literacies and things, that students know how to use different devices in different contexts and can switch between too.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know there's some existing research that suggests that a lot of them use the internet, a lot of them are, use, again, the more socially oriented digital technologies. But when it comes to actually using them, they don't necessarily know. They may use either devices or technologies that they're familiar with. It's actually seeing whether or not do they almost experiment with using, do they think about the different ways that they can use it, or is it, I think it is also partly dependent on them gaining that familiarity and that understanding, so whether or not that's through, lecturers or tutors may perhaps using it, I suppose that would be one way perhaps of doing that, but yeah, in some ways, but I mean, yeah.
It looked like that survey was mainly for first years just starting, so that was really actually about their expectations of what they're going to be using.
Yeah, so that was,
so it's not about what they do.
No, so that was very much.
Are you following that up now to see whether they have used their tablets for learning or their phones during the year?
At the moment, there hasn't been a discussion on doing a follow-up on, but that may well come through discussions with heads of LTA.
That's then, it's not really telling us what they are doing, because that's saying what they thought from school coming to university.
That was the rationale for doing that piece of work at the time, was to sort of capture what they're coming in with, and fixing it to that rather than doing something that was much more widespread as a starting point. But I think it would be very useful to follow that up and see. I think the survey itself asked some interesting questions, but it was off-piste a little bit because of the requirements of a visiting scholar and their work. I think there was quite a lot of interesting questions that we could ask students who are studying further on in their course about their uses of technologies in the classroom and the further use of devices. So it would be good to follow up.
Would you think you can correlate possibly some of the data you found in their responses against...
because with this particular survey we will have student numbers, so if we get the same students responding we can look at differences in...
But you can look at their use of certain things like Blackboard and web pages and things, and you'll see where the traffic's coming from, which devices they're using.
Yeah.
And I think your initial question was which of these technologies you think would be useful for academic success rather than in-class teaching. Academic success is going to be writing assignments and so on. It's completely different to in-class. And actually, the learning in class, it's just a completely different topic.
We weren't focusing on the academic success particularly.
But wasn't that the initial question?
That was one of the questions. That was one of the questions that we asked. I mean, we also asked.
But then I think that was the one that you flashed up, and the 90% response thought mobile phones and laptops are going to be equally useful. That's the very beginning.
Yeah. So there was the second question that was on how important is academic success. I mean, yeah, it was. Of course, laptops are going to be more important for academic success because they can be used for a much wider range of purposes and have much more capability, capacity to do certain things. I mean, another question we asked was actually whether or not they would use each of those devices for academic purposes, academic purposes or say social purposes or purposes. And again, the gap wasn't as substantial, the gap wasn't as large, but we found that, say, with laptops, there was still, I think it was something like 98% used them for educational purposes. And the other ones were around, I think, 80, around that mark. So there is still a gap, but I understand why.
Okay, I think Alan and Helen need to go off to another presentation, but if there's another question for David, just one final question.
Just a general statement, really. Be interested both in the context of teaching and learning, but also the context of students reflecting on their learning, starting to summarise how they've developed professionally, personally, and academically in using these different technologies. I come from a careers perspective, and we're looking at how we can maximise how students can engage with these technologies to sort of not just record what they've done in terms of developing new portfolios, but actually using the technology to reflect on their learning and how they've grown through their experiences.
That's right, and I was really keen for that. That's why I went with this hour later from the lecture. It was real kind of, okay, so you've had the lecture. What did you all think about it? What did you learn from it almost? And it did work for some. but not for I think it's trying to get more students involved. That was
One of the things which interests me, because I'm not very technically savvy, and it doesn't really, the actual tools don't really interest me that much. I'm not old-fashioned. But I think one of the things which really interests me is how we create much more of an academic community for students who are at university. And I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but increasingly I see them coming from school just interested in their assignment and whether or not they're going to pass their assignment or not. And for me, university is so much more than that. And how we create this transition to an academic community, I think is really interesting, particularly in a university like this where none of us have got, we don't see them on a regular basis in the same rooms. We're completely fragmented in our department around the university. And I think these social media, Twitter in particular, can be so powerful in doing that. That's what interests me a lot. So the things you described today I found really helpful and I've learned from. But I still think the teaching learning thing is fine, but it's really, this is an academic community. You've got to somehow engage with this in a way which benefits you personally. And that's what I find really interesting. Use of these might be helpful.
You're right, yeah, an online community.
Yeah. And then they have to move on into a professional community.
Stepping stone.
Help them with that as well.
That's right.
Okay, so we're out of time. So thanks to both the set of presenters. So just another round of applause. There's now a 20-minute break for refreshments in the art space in the central atrium.
My